Welcome back. And as we start off this morning, of course, we're reviewing continually the administration's performance in the last 2 years. And it's only right, particularly after 2 years of reforms, tagged harsh but necessary economic reforms that have really thrown Nigerians, beneath the weight of high commodity prices, high petrol prices. But where are the gains, and how long will Nigerians have to wait for the gains of this inevitable economic reforms? Depending on which side you're on, those reforms are beginning to bring in some gains that will trickle down. So let's have this conversation this morning, and we have joining us from our Abuja studio the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Mr. Sowore, who joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Sowore. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
And of course, as we start off, it's inevitable that, of course, you have made your views known about the administration's 2 years in office. And we've read your post on X. They come with, very, what seems to be a harsh assessment. Of course, you'll tell us more about that. But some say that these reforms are inevitable. And if any other candidate, as we reflect on the outcome of the 2023 presidential election, had won, besides the All Progressives Congress, that these reforms too will have been executed. So some say they're necessary. How do you weigh in on this?
No, I want to correct the impression that if any other candidate won, the same would have happened. If I won the election in 2023, I wasn't going to remove fuel subsidy. I was going to remove subsidizing those who are stealing from the poor. I wasn't going to float the naira the way they floated it, and I said it on Channels TV, what we do to the economy, that what we need to do is to rejig and reawaken the Nigerian economy and have a monetary policy that focuses on production, manufacturing, and that eases the pain of the people. I talked about public work, so I wouldn't have done what they are doing now. Maybe the other candidates in other political parties would have done the same thing, because they are not different from the ruling APC anyways. So that wasn't going to be the case if I had been elected as president in 2023. I just want to correct that first and foremost, yes.
So 2 years after, Mr. Sowore, what are your reflections?
On my way here, I almost turned back because I really don't think there's anything to evaluate. But because I'd already agreed to be on your show this morning, I said, I'm just going to come and be here to have an exchange of ideas, which is fantastic. But after 2 years in office, there is nothing to evaluate. As you referred to my tweet yesterday, I looked at the signature project of the Tinubu regime, which was the 700 kilometers highway, known as the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. And in 2 years, they have only succeeded in completing 30 kilometers. That means if they have 8 years, they would only have done 120 kilometers of a highway that they claim will be completed within their tenure. So that tells you where we are. That, for me, is a symbolism of how terrible things have been. But if you look at the energy sector, you look at the security sector, look at where Nigeria is. Nigeria is almost overrun again by terrorists, bandits, kidnappers, all across the country. The security situation is scary. The time this regime came into office, Boko Haram was in Yobe and Borno. As of now, the biggest terrorist camps are close to Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, and there is one in Kogi, in Okunland, around Obaja now. So the terrorists are moving, very fast and quickly towards the Atlantic Ocean, as we've always heard. So there's nothing, in my view, that I can look at. We're talking about the economy. By the time they came, it was 460 naira to a dollar. Now it's about 1,600 naira to a dollar. If you compare that to wages and salaries, whatever it is they are earning, and workers are earning now, which is 70,000 naira for most of workers, is in terms of value, is less than what they used to earn when it was 15,000 naira per month, when you look at the value of the Nigerian currency. So the only people who are making progress, I must admit, are those people in the executive branch. You know, the president just bought himself a brand new jet. He has the best medical insurance in the world. He travels to France anytime he coughs. Governors of states are collecting 4 times what used to be their monthly allocation and squandering and embezzling it. The local government autonomy that they said was going to happen, after the Supreme Court made a decision on it, the president reversed it. And when you talk about all of this, you can imagine that it still can pay back those interest rates. And you keep talking about interest rates as a central decision for, you know, you have all this bank of microphones in front of the central bank governor, you know, it's just, you know, speaking to nothing. Interest rates are not supposed to be central to economic development or monetary policies. Monetary policies are supposed to ginger economic development and growth. And any of these decisions that don't make that possible is not monetary policy. It's just press conferences of the MPC on a quarterly basis.
So, Mr. Sowore, let's look at other economic indicators now. And the World Bank itself adjudged that Nigeria's GDP has recorded significant growth in the last 10 years, if you measure it. There's also the speech from President Tinubu's second anniversary saying that debt service to revenue has dropped significantly to 40%. That's just to mention a few out of the other economic indicators that even analysts are projecting to giving a sense of hope that the benefits may not be witnessed now by the man at the bottom of the ladder, as I always say, but will come in somewhere further down the line. Surely this gives a sense of hope about the strategy of the managers of the economy under this administration.
No, it doesn't, and this is very important. I'm here to analyze the outcome of economic policies and government decisions. I'm not here to count how many times the World Bank has said that the GDP is growing and nothing is happening. There was a time in this country they went and said that the Nigerian economy was the biggest in the world. The World Bank said it, you know, the IMF said it, and nothing was true about it. But they were using it to prop up one of their candidates who was managing the Nigerian economy at that time to make it look like she's doing a good job. The truth is that you cannot say that an economy where you need over 100,000 megawatts of electricity is bigger than an economy, and you have only 7,000 operationally. And you are saying that an economy like South Africa that has 60,000 or 65,000 megawatts of electricity is smaller than Nigeria. It's all a lie. So they cook up all the stories. But what I want to tell you is that we are not new to the game. This is World Bank pushing their own economic agenda on Nigeria so that Nigeria can become the dumping ground for the products that they manufacture elsewhere, whereas the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government doesn't do what needs to be done. That is because they have allegiance to the World Bank and the IMF. Under the Structural Adjustment Program, they just changed the name of the Structural Adjustment Program, which they imposed on us, for so long now. So, and we do not have leaders who are capable of changing our, economic philosophy. In real sense of it. So you keep having the World Bank telling you that things are getting better, getting better, getting better. This has been the case since 1980. But look at the life of Nigerians over the period that we've been adopting this World Bank economic policy. Last week, the propaganda was that we had repaid back a loan of $4.3 billion. And then 2 days later, we are borrowing $21 billion from the same people to whom we just paid, and to whom we just paid off some loans. So you are wondering, why's all this deception about our relationship with this Bretton Woods institution?
Mr.
It's
Sowore,
because they want to control your life. They don't want to let you have a relationship. They don't want your economy to develop. So they keep lying to you that you are doing well, whereas look at what the Financial Times is doing, saying that Tinubu has made bold decisions that put Nigeria on the right path, which is not true. But you know these things are paid for. You know, they lobby to get the Financial Times to endorse them because the people who really make money from Nigeria are people who invest in short-term, bonds abroad, and they take out their money as soon as they rig the interest rates, and it's good for them. And then we are the ones who have to pay back all these loans. That's where you see the final. Yes.
Yes. So let's look at something critically. I like how you look at the picture, the way you're looking at it. So let's look at what could have been done differently. So they said they met an economy that may have tanked. So you see all of the high interest rate by the Monetary Policy Committee, the orthodoxy, as we call it in economics, where they just use it to taper inflation because they are liberalizing trade in that sense to create employment, as proffered by the Bretton Woods institutions, which sometimes we suspect intent, which you have talked about. But on one hand, when they raise interest rates, because interest rate is high, naturally we'll get good FPIs, foreign portfolio investment, but local manufacturing is dying. So I want you to look at it from the point of almost a tanking economy, and then the need for interest rate to be high with all the measures they put in place. Besides, I'm just focusing on interest rate that has attracted some of these foreign portfolio investments, but it's killing local industry. So there's a dilemma there. I want you to help us out with that dilemma. Another dilemma we've seen, but government sometimes, they're quite arrogant to admit that the way we budget is a bit funny, especially our assumption. And then we run into all of these deficits and try to cover up with maybe borrowings and all of that. How should we be budgeting differently? It's something people don't really talk about. Talk to us about it, sir.
Well, I actually was in Brazil in 2002 to attend the World Social Forum. And I found the Brazilian model, that was when Lula was around for the first time, to be exciting and, different and very, very creative. And every budgeting that they did in Brazil, particularly in the south where we were in Porto Alegre at that time, was done first at the community level. That is to say, before the budget is drawn at all, they go to the grassroots. They say, what do you need? As opposed to what do we need to give you? And then they'll tell them what they need. So we need schools in some places, we need bridges. And it is a community that will first and foremost cost what they need and what they want and what it will cost. And then they pass it at that level up to the top, first to the local government and the state, and operationally to the federal government. And then when the budget comes back, they will find out that the budgets are realistic and they are not padded, because the biggest problem with Nigerian budget is padding. The people who actually make the most amount of money, the corruption involved in budgeting have not been spoken about in Nigeria. There's a cabal that's involved, in the parliament and the executive sector in preparing budgets. They are the most powerful people, almost some of the most powerful people in this country. But we've never talked about them before. And these guys just make up budgets and then they send it to the National Assembly. It allows the National Assembly to negotiate their own cut of it. There are two ways the National Assembly is involved in padding budgets. One is that everybody that's presented a budget is supposed to appear before them. So you have to bribe them before you can even pass your budget. And this includes university vice chancellors. And the second aspect is that they then include what they call constituency projects. It is not the job of the National Assembly to be running constituency projects. They can suggest to the executive branch what they want to be done for their constituents, but it's not up to them to then become contractors who then implement these constituency projects. And that is why you have over ₦1 trillion padded into the Nigerian budget, and I can guarantee you that those constituency projects never get executed. So to your question, mine would be a democratization of the budgeting system where we go to the grassroots, ask people what they need at the grassroots levels, local governments, states already have, and then we come to the federal, and we put all this together with the executive branch budgeting office and say this is what Nigerian people need for this year and this is what it's going to cost. And we have an open and transparent process in which every dime we're spending is accounted for and can be seen by the people. If I'm building a bridge, I want people to know with a signboard in front of the bridge, the cost of the bridge, who is constructing it, what is the CAC number of that company, and where it is located. For everybody to see that transfer, there must also be one on the website that says, this is how far we have gone. This is where it is. And if there's any stoppage, we want the citizens to have an input into monitoring these projects for you. So that's how budgeting should be, and that's how the making of budget should be, and that's my own proposal for it, that it should start from the grassroots. And this has worked very well for the Brazilian people, to the point that it was so great that Lula had to be returned to office because he did so well in those areas. So, and you cannot say today that the Brazilian economy is not a good economy, it's not a great one. But over here, the biggest problem we have is the opacity of our budgeting system. Let me tell you that just as we are here today, most state governments, you can't find their budget anywhere. In 2025, where we are all digital citizens, you can't find the budget of most state governments anywhere to assess how the budget was made and how they are implementing it. They hide it. It's some of the biggest, biggest top secrets in Nigeria.
And you know, that just says a lot, really. Just to refer to your previous statement, you have reignited that debate, the monetarism debate. Is it Paul Volcker who's responsible for monetary policy, or Milton Friedman? It's been said that it was Milton Friedman, monetarism. That's the Nobel Prize-winning economist who wrote about it extensively before Paul Volcker then used it as a Reserve Bank head to bring down inflation.
Well,
but that's just by
Paul Volcker was the one who used it. That's what I'm. That's
Exactly.
why I mentioned Carter as well.
We should move this to the school where we can have a proper debate. But it's very interesting the way you brought it up, because it just brings to life.
You know I'm a teacher as well.
Exactly.
So I taught for 8 years in the U.S. 2 U.S. universities. So I understand.
That's brilliant.
Very well.
And it speaks to how we need to develop our own framework that really works for us. Because Milton Friedman sat down and looked at, you know, the trends. He went as far back as 1867, looked at the trend and said, this was what was responsible and this is what we need to do. So other people naturally picked it up from there, and they were able to transform the American economy. So it's a very valid point you make. But, you know, as we are speaking about the second anniversary of President Bola Tinubu, a lot of people are already looking to 2027, and they are ready to crown him president, or at least work for him to become president yet again from 2027 upwards. And I'm sure you've seen all the movements to the center. People are singing, their outfits are being made. You know, it's just a lot of frenzy. You almost think that this was 2027 already, when we're just 2 years in to this administration. So, Mr. Sowore, it looks like he might get a second term if he's going to get this much support. Do you see anything stopping him from getting a second term, in spite of some of the failures that you've identified in this administration?
Well, it always feels like that with every, you know, as a matter of fact, the frenzy you described, manufactured frenzy, to give the impression, they serve two purposes. One is to create distraction from the failures of the government in power. And there's no government who is into 2 years in power, or even the first year, who don't create some kind of manufactured frenzy around their performance, their preference, and the fact that they are popular. I remember when Yar'Adua was in power, and he had a head crisis. Everybody knew it. While he was in Saudi Arabia, almost brain dead, a group has set up here. It was led by one Polycarp Umwite, I think, campaigning for him. You know, they were already campaigning for his second term, even though the man was dying in hospital. So, you know, there's a cottage industry around that as well. So there's nothing to worry about. what I'm very clear about is that the opportunity for Nigerians to look the other way, to change course and direction is being presented by the Tinubu regime. Except we lose out, this is the best time, to change course, because they have presented to the Nigerian people over and over again that, look, we're here to do whatever we want with you. And it is up to the Nigerian people to say, look, we are tired of the abuses, and the subjugation and the decimation of our lives. We are tired of being in darkness. We are tired of being hungry. We are tired of being without sewage, without water. We are tired of an educational system that is messed up. We are tired of a healthcare system that is broken and is not going to be fixed. We are tired of lies and deception. So these guys have presented Nigerian people with clear alternative if they choose to. If they don't, then you can't blame them for getting a second time. But for me, based on their performance, there's no second time here. I don't see a second time. In fact, I do not see an end to a first time that will end well, because they have not started well.
So many, points that have been raised from some of the things that you have said so far. For instance, we could ask, how then do we define our relationship, with the Bretton Woods institution? What economic policy approach is best suited for Nigeria if the methods, adopted by the current administration is not working in your perspective? But we seem to focus a bit too much on the federal level, without paying attention to the states. And that's where I want you to weigh in on now. For the states, even regardless of those celebrating 2 years or those in their second term, which stand out for you in terms of management of their local economy, prioritizing human capital development, especially, to balance with what is often considered to be their priority, which is infrastructure development? Which states stand out for you in this regard, Mr. Sowore?
A Nigerian state can only stand out in terms of performance if you have never been to a country where things function. Then you look at any state and you just generously say, well, they are performing. That is if you have never been outside of the shores of Nigeria. You've never seen how local governments perform. I've seen a lot of the states claiming that, celebrating their 2 years and saying that they are performing wonder. But when you go to the states, there's nothing happening, except we don't, our standards are so low that we celebrate anything, even when there's nothing. So I have not seen a Nigerian state that can boast of 100 kilometers of highway. I've not seen a Nigerian state that can boast of schools that are of the best standards. I'm not talking about even international standards. I'm talking about local standards that we used to have in the 80s and even 90s. I haven't found a state that can boast of any good hospital. None. There's no state in Nigeria where if a state governor is sick, he can check into the hospital that he built. None. I've never met such a state. I've never met a state that pays salaries to workers that can take the workers home, or that can be said to be a living wage. So, except you don't know what states are supposed to do, or what states do in other places, then you can start, and be saying that, in the country of the blind, in the country of the blind, the man with glaucoma is the best, So, and I'm not mocking people with glaucoma because it's not fault of their own. But I'm just saying that people who claim to be governors in our states, none of them has done anything, Maybe the only thing they do is to buy live stream from TV stations and just read out statistics that don't conform with what's on the ground. I saw one yesterday who was laboriously sweating, and showing all these car parks. And I mean, how do you celebrate car parks in 2025? People celebrate university, People go to Saudi Arabia and know what they are doing with oil resources. Go to Qatar, go to all these Gulf states, look at Caribbean countries, small countries that you don't even see on the map of the world. They are doing better than Nigeria. And then you have state governors who are buying 2 hours of live stream to read statistics of achievements that don't exist. I'm so sorry to say that I don't know how to rate states in Nigeria, considering that we live in the same country where nothing is happening. So it's much ado about nothing.
Well, Mr. Sowore, it's a gloomy picture that you paint, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with raising the bar of excellence. And we must bring you back to have a continuation of part 2 of that debate on how we should better manage the economy. We must thank you very much for your time on the program at this point. We've been talking with Mr. Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in 2023. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that's not all on the review of the performance of this administration. We'll be hearing from the spokesperson, one of the spokespersons of the administration, to try to put up a defense and explain to what is actually happening. So stay with us. We'll be right back.